Hi everyone, I'm Effany Gale, and today I thought I would chat to you about where I get my ideas from. A lot of writers seem to really hate this question, and I understand that that's usually because either they don't know where their ideas came from, or they see their story as 100 little ideas all mashed together and they don't know what to do with that, or a combination of the two. But 90% of the time, I know exactly what sort of sparked an idea for a story, and sometimes I even remember exactly where I was when I got that story idea. So I'm going to talk to you today about 10 different sources for my story ideas that have either been published or, in the case of number one, are forthcoming. So I've signed the contract, but they're not live in the world yet. Number one on this list is literal nightmares. This isn't somewhere that I've historically gotten a lot of ideas from. 99.9% of the time, there is nothing that I dream about that would make a good story. But these two pieces that I've already sold this year, which is very exciting, they came from literal nightmares. I remembered them when I woke up, and what I did was I kept the settings and a couple of key plot points and tweaked the characters a bit and then expanded upon them until they were a proper story. And it's really exciting to have already sold stories and it be January. Number two is things that I love. So for instance, Curio Queens, which is a story about a magical board game, was inspired by my real life love of board games. So that's really nice and straightforward. But for instance, my story Wrecked was loosely inspired by a TV show that I used to be really into called Once Upon a Time. And if you're not familiar with the show, you can probably tell by the title that it's all about fairy tales. And Wrecked isn't at all about fairy tales. But what bothered me in Once Upon a Time was one of the main characters had this little lip scar that was never referred to in the show, even though it was a show that used to be constantly about characters' backstories and flashbacks and telling you how everyone was related to one another and how every little instance had some kind of story behind it. And the fact that they never referred to this lip scar really frustrated me. So Wrecked is a story about a TV show and a lip scar and the backstory behind that lip scar. And then All the Times I'm 10, which was a story that I had come out last year, was indirectly inspired by Pokemon, because people were talking about how we're these adult players who, every time we start up these new games, we are starting as the child protagonist again and again. And that inspired this story, which was all about waking up again and again, lifetime after lifetime, in the body of a 10-year-old child. Number three is disappointment that a story wasn't what I wanted or expected. So for instance, I haven't read this book, but there is a novel called In the Forest of Hands and Teeth, or a title very similar to that. And I learned that the story was not about a literal forest of hands and teeth. It was more of a metaphorical title. And I was really disappointed by that because I wanted a literal forest of hands or teeth. So my story, in the beginning, All Our Hands Are Cold, is about a literal forest with hands hanging from the trees. And that's what inspired that story. And similarly, my story, The Light Princess, was because I was looking through Wikipedia at a list of fairy tale names. And there was this classic fairy tale called The Light Princess. And I got excited because I thought, great, this is a story about a glowing princess. But in fact, that wasn't what the story was. The story was all about a princess who was very light, gravity-wise. So, she would float up like a balloon. And again, I was disappointed that what I wanted the story to be was not what the fairy tale actually was. So then I wrote my own fairy tale called The Light Princess, which was about a glowing princess like I had wanted it to be. Number four is things that I wish would happen. So for instance, Experience is about being able to take a tablet and getting someone else's job experience when you take over their role. Or One More Time is about the day constantly repeating for everyone, like Groundhog Day, but for everyone, not just for one person. So no one has to worry about getting food or job security or housing or anything like that, because you only have to worry about that 24-hour period that just keeps repeating. Number 5 is an image. So the Candle Queen started with an image of a woman with candles strapped to her head, and the Orchard started with an image of magical trees. Number 6 is modernization. When the Ice Comes In is a contemporary, modern day retelling of The Little Match Girl. Number 7, I'm going to call fake things in the real world. So this was inspired by a conspiracy theory where these various actors and singers were not actually their original selves, that they had somehow been replaced with identical doppelgangers or almost identical doppelgangers who had taken over their lives. Now, I don't believe in this conspiracy theory, but because I write speculative fiction, my mind went, okay, what if that sort of thing had happened, but there was a doppelganger from a parallel universe? And that's how The Secret Death of Lane Islington came about. Number 8 is trope or genre deconstruction. Easy Like Arsenic started with the idea of a princess waiting for a prince to save her and becoming really depressed and desperate when it was a woman who came to save her instead, because it didn't match with her idea of how this fairy tale was supposed to go. Number 9 is mashing 2 or more things that I love together. So for instance, Five Tales of the Rose Palace came from several different fairy tales that I sort of smashed or linked together to form one story. And that occurred to me because I kept seeing roses or other red flowers come up in all of these separate fairy tales, and my brain started to work on how could these be connected. Number 10 is situations I don't want to end up in. So Morning Sickness is about losing your partner's trust while trying to survive some monsters, and Candy is about being kidnapped and imprisoned for someone that you love. I'll give you a bonus number 11. This isn't a story that I've had published so far, I just finished it last year, but this one started with a title. I woke up with this title in my brain and I got excited about it pretty quickly, because inherent in the title was a location, a setting, a character, and a conflict. So just from that few words of the title, I could expand upon that pretty easily to get at least the bones of a story. So I was really pleased about that one. So I thought I would also talk to you about how I pick the next story to write, because I always have a long list of story ideas that I could potentially start with, and which one do I pick next? So there are 3 factors that I generally look at when picking the next story idea. One is simply how excited or inspired I am to write it. If I'm really excited about it, perhaps the next couple of factors matter a little bit less. The second factor is how much I know about the story. So do I know in detail everything that's going to happen? Do I know the big kind of plot beats, the beginning, a couple in the middle and the end? Or is it less fleshed out than that? Do I need to do a bit more thinking about the story and exactly where it's going to go? So if I don't know a lot about the story yet, then that would be a factor in me not picking that up to write just yet. If there are stories that I know more about, it generally would make sense to write those first. And the third factor is how marketable I think a story is. So are people going to like it? Are editors going to like it? Am I going to be able to sell it to a good market? If I don't think that there is a market for it, if it's going to be extremely difficult to sell, then I'm probably not going to write it in its current form. I'm either going to leave it in favor of other more marketable stories, or I'm going to adjust it in a way that I think is going to be more palatable to editors and more of interest to the general readership. That's it for today. Like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.